It's time for the Las Vegas Sportsline. Brought to you by Ceasars Entertainment, where every guest is treated like Caesar and every visit is unforgettable.
And we welcome you aboard to the Wednesday edition of the Las Vegas Sportsline. It is our Caesars Entertainment Wednesday. Jeff Davis, Director of Trading for Caesars, is with us right now. I'm Dave Cokin. Ari Platinum's our producer. Later on, Wes Reynolds will be with us to talk a little about the Open Championship, or the British Open, whichever you want to call it. We'll have Marco D'Angelo with the Wager Talk Marquee matchup later in the show as well. And we'll get to our MJ Christensen for all that good stuff. Quick baseball update, scores in progress. Bottom of the ninth, the Mets are going to pick up another win against the Twins. They're up 14-4 in that game. Brewers are heading toward a win against the Braves, leading 5-2 bottom of the eighth. Cubs, 4-1, lead top of the eighth against the Reds. The Reds do have a threat going in that game. Rockies and Giants at Coors, another pitcher's duel there. It's 5-5 at the end of five. Oakland leads Seattle 3-2 in the bottom of the fifth. And we've got a final score. The Cardinals held on to beat the Pirates 6-5 in an exciting game at St. Louis. Last night, more exciting games all over the place, including one at Citizens Park, or whatever they call it. It's Citizens Park, I guess they call it, in Philadelphia, where hometown hero for us, Bryce Harper, delivered the big blow.
Jansen to Harper. That's a line drive into center field, a base hit that kicks by Pollock, and the Phillies will win this one in the bottom of the ninth. What a wacky night.
Bryce Harper, our star of the night here on the show. He delivered the big hit for the Phillies, and that was a game, Jeff. They were a load of home runs in that game, but it turned out to be a base hit by Harper that won it. But, let's start off talking about the Phillies. They've had a couple of walk-off winners the last 3 days, but this team's really struggling right now, and they loom as one of the big disappointments in baseball this year, considering how much they loaded up this winter.
Yeah, the hype train certainly surrounded the Phillies in the offseason, and, I look at the National League and I look at this team, and I see the Phillies being exactly what they are, roughly a 500 team. Harper's been good but not great, probably not necessarily performing to his contract, and the pitching has been average at best. Nola, good, not great. Eflin, he's been all right, but anyone else they run out there has been terrible. Pivetta, Velasquez, and Eichhoff have given up 51 home runs in 185 innings. That's as bad as it gets. And outside of Adam Morgan, really, the bullpen, there's no one there they can trust. So you look at the Phillies, 3 games over 500, and I assume that's what you would expect out of them at this point.
What was the future book on them in terms of action? Because they were a hype team over the winter, and I was thinking they might generate quite a bit of action.
As you would expect, we're absolutely inundated to them in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and we can't give them away in Nevada. As a whole, we're a winner to them. Not super big, but very much a regional bias team in the World Series market.
I saw some figures published. The other side of that game last night was the Dodgers, and I saw some figures published on high leverage bullpen ERA. And down at the bottom of the list, they were one of the worst teams in baseball. The Los Angeles Dodgers, they're loaded everywhere, but maybe not so much in the bullpen. Their closer has been shaky at times, and the guys in front of him haven't been that good. I know the Dodgers are a big future liability for everybody on the West Coast, and that could be their undoing once again.
Yeah, if you were going to find a fault to the Dodgers, it would be the bullpen. And, I wouldn't be too worried if I were a Dodger fan. They're a shoo-in to win in the NL West, and they're the likely 1 seed in the National League. They're going to be a big favorite in every series they play. The rotation is, the best in baseball, and if it's not, it's right up there with them. We're a winner to them in the future market, albeit not all that much money. I would expect the front office to do what needs to be done if they feel that the bullpen needs to be improved. I look at the names out there, and I think they have a pretty solid crew. Yeah, they haven't been good in the high leverage situations, but I think that's something that ship can be righted. I wouldn't be too worried about the Dodgers.
Well, one team that they're popular everywhere, but particularly popular in 2 cities, Chicago and Las Vegas, and that would be the Cubs. They're playing good ball right now. I know they lost yesterday, made a couple of errors a couple of days ago, and that hurt them. But this team's starting to round into form. I think they're playing their best ball right now. And they did pick up Kimbrel. The jury's still out on whether he's still going to be effective or not. But if he turns back into a semblance of the old Kimbrel, this team gets really scary.
Yeah, and speaking of the futures market, they are our worst team of teams that can logically win the World Series. I look at this roster top to bottom. It's probably the best in the NL Central. They have depth in the power department. They have 6 or 7 guys that can hit the ball out of the ballpark. And outside of Javi Baez and to some point Almora, a very patient team at the plate. This is a difficult lineup to get through multiple times. The rotation is full of guys who, you know, they've been okay. They're veterans, but these are guys that can be good in the postseason. You know, Darvish has to dial back the walks a bit. But the area of concern for me, like you said with Kimbrel, it's in the bullpen. Kinsler's been excellent, and I don't expect that to change. Cishek has been better than anyone could have expected, and that could regress at any point. But this bullpen lacks depth. I would assume the Cubs look to improve this going forward.
Well, one team that doesn't lack a whole lot of anything right now, they're just a good team, and they're young, too. The Braves, they're going to lose today, but they'll be 18 games over 500. They're in control of the National League East right now. And they might just be this good.
You know, they might. And this offense is carried by stars. Freeman and Acuna especially. These two guys are unbelievable. They got a lot of other nice pieces. Ozzie Albies, Josh Donaldson. This team will continue to score a lot of runs. You know, Soroka's been great, but I worry about this rotation when it gets down to the playoff time. I'm not sure they have enough guys to get these key outs when they need to. It's good to see this team in contention again, but seeing them win 1 or 2 playoff series with the pitching rotation they have, I'm not sure.
Okay, Jeff, if we had this conversation about 4 weeks ago, and I mentioned this team as a potential, well, they're in the playoff race. I mean, the Giants have been playing great ball since the beginning of June. I think it's a fluke, but you know, they keep on winning. They're ahead again today, 6-5 in the 6th against the Rockies. I'm shocked. I really am. And maybe they're playing hard for Bruce Bochy. Maybe everything's fit together somehow. But San Francisco is suddenly looking like a pretty good baseball team. And maybe they shouldn't trade Mad Bum.
You know, this is an interesting one because, you know, we were 500 to 1 on the Giants to win the World Series for a long time. And, you know, those $10 and $20 bets at 500 to 1 add up real fast. So, you know, we got a pretty big liability number on them. And while I'm not too worried about them making the playoffs, I look up and down this lineup, and frankly, it's awful.
I know.
You know, but they're hitting right now. They came out of the break, scored a ton of runs. So, you know, given how mediocre, you know, the National League is outside of the top handful of teams, are they live to make the playoffs? Yeah, by definition. I don't think they're going to make it. And as far as trading Bumgarner, yeah, he's a free agent at the end of the year. I think they'd be happy to trade him, but I also don't think they're going to give him away. If the price is right and they can get a deal that, you know, they can't turn down, I think they're going to deal him. But, you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see him wearing a Giants uniform the rest of the way either.
Neither would I. And the one thing I'll say, and I know I agree with everything you said, but the one thing I'll throw in on the Giants, and this is why I kind of give them a shot, they've got something most teams don't have, which is 3 innings of really good pitchers in the bullpen. That's a rare commodity in the major leagues this year.
Yeah, their bullpen has been probably their strength all year. I mean, what they need to avoid is facing a lot of lefties and facing lefties in the playoffs. This team cannot hit lefties whatsoever. Again, you know, they have a few nice pieces. They've got a good manager. They've got a couple of veterans who have some experience. I just don't know if it's enough.
I talked about this yesterday. I was speaking with Jeff Davis, director of trading for Caesars Entertainment, and switching gears to football. I mentioned that this was a red flag for me, and I want to get your assessment of it. The Houston Texans look like a, you know, pretty decent team, but they've got a problem right now when it revolves around Jadeveon Clowney, the NFLPA, and team management, where they decided to tag him as a linebacker instead of a defensive end, even though he plays primarily defensive end. He technically qualifies as both. That saves them some money on the franchise tag, and the NFLPA and Clowney are not very happy about it. I think that's a really bad way to go into training camp, and I've already downgraded the Texans because of this. Am I overrating that?
I could look at this both ways, and, full disclosure, I may not be as versed on the Texans as many others. But, it's just a bad look from a management perspective. Like you say, I mean, the guy's an all-world athlete that causes all kinds of havoc on the defensive line. Let's pay the guy like he should be paid. And it looks like a clear shot to slight the guy and save some money. And as far as morale goes in camp, it really can't be good. And I look at the betting action, and I see conflicting opinions. Season wins opened 8.5 under a quarter. It's now 8.5 under -50. The Super Bowl, we opened 35-1. It's drifted up to 45-1. And in general, it's one of the teams that's garnered the least amount of action. However, we did take a sharp yes to make the playoffs plus $1.50 bet. So there is some conflicting interest here. So I'm curious to see how this plays out.
If you've got your app for Caesars, you can go to the college football, and they're all up there. You can start running them down and have some fun with them, start studying them, get in and make your bets. The college football over and under win totals, fire away, guys. They're up now, and I want to find out who's getting some of the early action in either direction. Well,
the two teams I'm going to mention here probably would surprise many. The team that has the most handle is Nebraska. This has been the case 2 years in a row now for Caesars. They were the highest handle last year, and I don't know why this is the case, but it is here. It's 8.5 flat. We opened that. We moved it a little each way, and we're still at 8.5 flat. Money both ways, great situation from the house. And I look at Nebraska, and I see a team that's in its second year under Scott Frost. We saw what he did at Central Florida. And frankly, they play the most ludicrously easy schedule anyone could ask for. They catch Ohio State and Wisconsin at home. They don't play either Michigan team. I'm hard-pressed to find 4 losses on this schedule. The other one that's been taking a ton of money is Oregon State. And our opinion on Oregon State is far lower than everyone else's. We've taken thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars on this, and I don't think there's been one opinion. We opened 2 under -40, and we had to go to 2.5 over 50 to get a bet on the under. And now that we've gone so far high because a couple other places in town opened high, we've now been taking a steady stream of under money to get it pretty close back to even. But I look at this schedule, assuming they beat Cal Poly at home, if they don't beat Hawaii on the road, I have no idea how on earth this team is going to win 3 games. They just gave up a slew of points last year, got pounded seemingly every week. They get everyone back, but when you're that bad, Is it good that they get everyone back? I'm not sure. I don't find 3 wins on this team's schedule.
I think maybe part of it is that the general consensus is there are no real outstanding teams in the Pac-12, and that allows for even the dregs of the conference like Oregon State to maybe steal 1 or 2 wins.
I suppose. I mean, maybe what game do they win at? Cal, maybe home against Arizona State. But other than that, they're a big dog against most of the rest of the schedule. So, again, can they catch a team sleeping? Yeah, maybe. But if you're an overbacker in Oregon State, like so many of them are, you best get that game in Hawaii.
I was watching a little a Golf Channel earlier, and, boy, I'll tell you what, if the wind conditions are what they are today, birdies are going to be tough to come by on this course, and bogeys are going to be plentiful. I actually tweeted this. The wind was so strong on one par 3 that Sergio Garcia was using a driver off the tee on a par 3, no less. This could be a wild weekend over in Northern Ireland.
Oh, it's great. Where do I begin? This is the best major as far as I'm concerned. The courses they play are just so different than what we're used to watching week in, week out. It's on in the wee hours. I show up to work. It's 5 in the morning. I got 7 hours of golf in front of me. It's the best. Like you were talking about, this par 3, 16 is brutal, 235 yards, and there's this cliff right on the right side of the green where it goes down like 50 feet. There's all this thick stuff in there. Par is going to be an absolutely incredible score on 16, and this is a hole that really could change the course of the tournament on Sunday.